December 7, 1941. Pearl Harbor, Oahu, territory of Hawaii. 6-8 hours. The deck of the Akagi vibrates faintly beneath Lieutenant Commander Mitsuo Fuchida's boots as the last aircraft lifts into the pale morning sky. The sun is still low, a thin blade of light cutting across calm water. The air smells of fuel, oil, and salt. Above him, the first wave of attack aircraft, Nakajima B-5N Kates, HID-3A Vals, and Mitsubishi A-6M Zeros, form into disciplined lines, engines droning like a distant storm. Fuchida raises his binoculars and watches them disappear toward the southeast. Somewhere beyond the horizon lies Pearl Harbor. American battleships sit at anchor, crews waking to a Sunday morning routine. Coffee being poured. Shoes unlaced. No alarms. At 7:40, a faint crackle breaks through the radio on the flag bridge. Then a voice, tight, controlled, unmistakably calm. Tora, Tora, Tora. Fuchida exhales slowly. Complete surprise. Minutes later, the horizon itself seems to pulse. Even from this distance, something has changed. The sky above Oahu darkens with columns of smoke, thin at first, then thickening into rolling black towers. Fuchida's binoculars find flashes of light. Anti-aircraft fire waking too late, tracer rounds climbing blindly. Then at 8:06 it happens. At first, it looks like lightning striking the sea. A sudden, blinding flash erupts near Ford Island, brighter than anything Fuchida has seen in combat. The light expands instantly, swallowing the shape of a battleship whole. For a fraction of a second, the world is white. Then the sound arrives. Even across miles of water, the explosion punches the air. A deep, concussive thump followed by a rolling thunder that seems to travel through the sea itself. The shockwave ripples outward, visible in the smoke, in the water, in the way nearby ships vanish behind a wall of fire. Fuchida lowers his binoculars. His mouth is slightly open. That was a magazine, someone whispers behind him. The binoculars come back up, hands steady now out of habit more than calm. Through the smoke, he sees the shattered remains of USS Arizona. The battleship's forward section is gone, simply erased. A towering pillar of flame and black smoke rises hundreds of feet into the sky, boiling upward like a volcanic eruption. Molten steel rains back onto the deck and into the harbor. Men are visible for an instant, tiny figures thrown into the air, silhouettes against the fire, then gone. Inside Arizona, forward of Turret 2, over 1 million pounds of smokeless powder have detonated. The bomb, dropped by a B-5N Kate, converted from an armor-piercing naval shell, has pierced the deck near the forward magazine. The explosion travels faster than thought. Compartments collapse before lungs can draw breath. Entire sections of the ship are killed instantly, not by flame, but by pressure. Fuchida watches as the battleship settles, bow first, into the harbor. The superstructure twists. The mast tilts. Flames race across the oil-slicked water, spreading outward, igniting men who have already escaped the ship. The harbor itself seems to burn. For a moment, no one on the bridge speaks. This was not supposed to be visible from here. The plan called for damage, for sinking ships at anchor, but this is annihilation. A junior officer finally breaks the silence. Taisho, how many would be aboard? Fuchida does not answer immediately. He knows the American Sunday routine. He knows the Arizona is fully manned. Over 1,400 sailors and Marines aboard. He estimates quickly. Forward magazines. Turrets 1 and 2. Mess spaces. Sleeping quarters. Too many, he says quietly. Another explosion rocks the harbor, smaller, sharper. A destroyer or cruiser taking a hit. But it is the Arizona that dominates the view, the black column marking the spot like a funeral pyre visible for miles. Fuchida feels a strange tightening in his chest. Not guilt. Not pride. Something colder. This is what modern war looks like, he realizes. Not broadsides and maneuver, not hours of gunnery duels, but a single bomb, a single moment, and a capital ship ceases to exist. Below decks on the Arizona, over 1,100 men are already dead. Many will never be recovered. The harbor water above them begins to seal their tomb. As the smoke continues to rise, Fuchida turns his gaze back to the sky. More Japanese aircraft dive toward their targets. More bombs fall. But none will ever match what he has just witnessed. One bomb. One ship. One instant that rewrites the meaning of naval power. December 7, 1941. Pearl Harbor. 8-10 hours. The column of smoke from USS Arizona continues to rise, widening at the top like a spreading bruise across the sky. It is visible to every pilot, every sailor, every man involved in the attack. For Japanese aircrews diving toward their targets, it becomes an unspoken reference point, a landmark of destruction. Lieutenant Saburo Sakai, flying top cover in his Zero, glances left as he banks. Even at altitude, he can feel it. The heat. The blast has disturbed the air itself, sending invisible currents upward. The smoke plume is not drifting. It is climbing with force, fed by burning fuel oil and shattered steel. What ship was that? His wingman asks over the radio. Sakai does not know. But he knows this much. No ship survives that. On the water, chaos spreads outward from the blast zone. Oil burns in thick, rolling sheets, turning escape routes into traps. Sailors leap from wrecked ships into the harbor, only to surface coughing, their skin already slick with fuel. Some are on fire before they realize it. Others dive again, instinctively, to escape the flames, holding their breath beneath the burning sea. Inside the remains of Arizona, there is no such struggle. The forward half of the battleship is a shattered shell. Compartments that once held ammunition, food stores, and sleeping sailors are now crushed inward, pancaked by pressure measured in thousands of pounds per square inch. Men nearest the blast are killed instantly, organs ruptured, bones shattered before nerves can send pain. Deeper inside, the shockwave travels through steel passageways faster than sound, slamming bulkheads loose, snapping rivets, collapsing decks. Fire follows immediately. Flames race through open hatches and ventilation shafts, consuming oxygen, leaving survivors trapped in darkness and smoke. Some pound on steel that will never open. Others are already unconscious, overcome by heat and fumes. The ship settles deeper. On Ford Island, Army and Navy personnel stare across the channel in stunned silence. Many have stopped firing altogether, their weapons hanging uselessly at their sides. A chief petty officer finally shouts at a nearby gun crew to keep shooting, but even his voice lacks conviction. You cannot shoot at an explosion that has already happened. Back aboard the Akagi, Fuchida receives fragmentary reports. Battleships hit. Airfields burning. Minimal Japanese losses so far. The operation is proceeding almost exactly as planned. Almost. He keeps returning to the image of Arizona. Not the explosion itself, but the aftermath, the way the ship seemed to die in a single breath. He has spent his career studying naval warfare, armor thickness, shell trajectories, damage control doctrine. Battleships are supposed to absorb punishment. They are designed to be wounded, not erased. Yet one bomb, one precisely placed strike, has accomplished what entire fleets once struggled to do. Below decks on Arizona, trapped sailors feel the ship tilt and settle. Water pours through ruptured seams. The heat becomes unbearable. For many, there is no dramatic final moment, just darkness, pressure, and then nothing. Their watches stop. Their names will later be engraved in stone. By 8:17, the forward magazines are completely flooded. The fires continue to burn above them, fed by oil leaking endlessly from ruptured tanks. The wreck will burn for 2 days. Nearby, USS Vestal, moored alongside Arizona, has been torn open by the blast. Her captain orders lines cut and engines ahead. The ship pulls away just in time, scraping past the wreckage, narrowly avoiding being dragged down with her. From the air, Japanese pilots see something unprecedented. An American battleship already beyond salvage before the second wave has even arrived. They are finished, one pilot mutters into his oxygen mask. This realization ripples through the attacking force. The Americans are not just surprised, they are vulnerable in a way no one fully understood. Battleships at anchor, unprotected, fuel lines exposed, ammunition stored below decks like dormant volcanoes. For the Japanese Navy, trained on the doctrine of decisive surface engagements, this moment carries a deeper implication. If a single bomb can destroy a capital ship outright, then the era of line-of-battle dominance may already be ending. Fuchida does not voice this thought aloud. There is no time. More aircraft are returning. Fuel states must be calculated. The question of a third strike, against fuel depots' dry docks, hangs unspoken in the air. But the image of Arizona burning lodges itself firmly in his mind. Later, long after the war, Fuchida will recall this moment not with triumph, but with clarity. He will describe it as the instant he understood the true cost of what had begun, not in abstract terms of strategy, but in human lives erased in seconds. At Pearl Harbor, the attack continues. More ships are hit. More men die. But for those who witness it, Japanese and American alike, the destruction of USS Arizona stands apart. A singular, violent punctuation mark in the opening sentence of a global war. And the shockwave from that one bomb will travel far beyond the harbor, reshaping naval warfare forever. December 7, 1941. Pearl Harbor. 8:20 hours. The water around USS Arizona has become a living thing, rolling, burning, alive with heat. Thick black oil spreads across the harbor's surface, ignited by flaming debris still raining from the sky. Every movement stirs fire. Every breath tastes of smoke. Seaman First Class Donald Stratton claws his way onto a floating piece of wreckage, his hands slick with oil, his arms burned raw. Behind him, another sailor surfaces, screaming, his uniform aflame. Stratton tries to reach him, but the flames surge, forcing him back. The scream cuts off abruptly. Along the shoreline, medics and sailors form ad hoc rescue teams. Ropes are thrown. Ladders lowered. Men pull burning bodies from the water and beat out flames with bare hands, jackets, anything they can find. Some rescuers collapse from the heat, dragged back by others before they too are consumed. Inside the sunken hull, pockets of life still exist. Below the waterline, in compartments shielded from the worst of the blast, a handful of sailors have survived, trapped in air pockets that shrink by the minute. The ship lists steadily. Metal groans. Water pours in through twisted seams. The darkness is absolute. Boatswain's mate Joseph Langdell strikes a bulkhead with a wrench. The sound echoes weakly. He knows no one can hear him over the roar of the fires and explosions above, but instinct drives him to keep trying. Each strike steals oxygen. Each breath is hotter than the last. Some men pray. Others go silent, conserving air. A few write messages on scraps of paper, tucking them into pockets already filling with water. Above them, no rescue can reach that deep. Not now, not today. At 8:25, a second wave of Japanese aircraft roars in low over the harbor. The sky fills again with engine noise, the sharp staccato of machine gun fire, the hollow crump of bombs striking steel. Anti-aircraft guns finally find their rhythm, black bursts peppering the sky, but it is too late to change the outcome. From high above, pilots see Arizona as a burning wreck already written off. They shift focus to other targets. Nevada making her desperate run for the Channel, California slowly settling, West Virginia torn open by torpedoes. Yet even as the battle spreads, the wreck of Arizona remains the visual center of the harbor. Smoke pours from her like a signal fire. It is impossible to ignore. On the Akagi, Fuchida studies updated damage reports. Battleships sunk or sinking. Aircraft losses acceptable. Surprise complete. Still, his eyes drift back toward the smoke. He imagines the interior of that ship, magazines designed to withstand enemy fire, safety protocols meant to prevent exactly this kind of catastrophe. All undone by timing, placement, and chance. A bomb striking near turret 2. A spark meeting powder. Naval architects will debate the technical reasons for decades. But for the men inside, there is no debate. By 8:40, organized resistance in the harbor has begun to stiffen. Anti-aircraft fire grows heavier. Japanese losses increase. Pilots report damage. The window of invulnerability is closing. Down in the wreck, the last air pockets collapse. One by one, trapped sailors lose consciousness. The water becomes still. On Ford Island, a Marine bandsman stares at the burning ship and whispers, "She was here 1 minute, and then she wasn't." The phrase spreads among the survivors. It captures the terror perfectly. A battleship, symbol of permanence and power, gone in a single flash. As the second wave withdraws, smoke blankets the harbor so thickly that visibility drops to yards. The sound of aircraft fades, replaced by the crackle of fires, the hiss of steam, and the cries of the wounded. The attack is nearly over. But the consequences are just beginning. For the Japanese officers watching from afar, the explosion of USS Arizona has provided undeniable proof of air power's dominance. For the Americans standing amid the ruins, it marks the end of innocence, the moment the war becomes real, personal, and irreversible. The ship will never leave the harbor. Her hull will be sealed, her dead entombed where they fell. Oil will continue to seep from her wreck for decades, a slow, black reminder of that morning. And somewhere on the deck of a Japanese carrier, an officer who witnessed it all understands that the world's balance of power has shifted, not gradually, but violently, in the space of a single breath. December 7, 1941. North of Oahu. 9:15 hours. The last Japanese aircraft return in loose, fuel-light formations. Some limp back with flak holes stitched through wings and fuselages. Others are missing entirely. On the flight decks of the carriers, deck crews move with practiced urgency. Signal flags snapping, arrestor wires humming, engines screaming as pilots fight gravity and exhaustion to bring their machines home. Lieutenant Commander Mitsuo Fuchida stands near the island structure as the first Zero slams onto the deck, tailhook catching hard. He watches the pilot climb out, face blackened with oil and smoke, eyes wide with something more than adrenaline. "What did you see?" Fuchida asks. The pilot hesitates. "Sir, it was like the harbor exploded." Others echo the same sentiment. Battleships burning. Ships overturned. Oil on fire. Men jumping into the water. One pilot describes flying through a cloud of smoke so thick it blocked the sun, then bursting through to see the shattered remains of Arizona still burning, even as he climbed away. By 9:45, flight operations slow. The carriers turn north, away from Hawaii, their bows cutting clean lines through the Pacific. The attack is over. Below decks, staff officers compile damage assessments. The numbers are impressive. Multiple battleships sunk or disabled, hundreds of aircraft destroyed on the ground, airfields crippled. Strategically, it is a success. Yet the mood is strangely subdued. Fuchida retreats to his cabin. The hum of the ship's engines vibrates through the bulkheads. He removes his gloves, flexes his fingers. They are steady now, but his mind is not. He sits at the small desk and begins making notes for his after-action report. Times, targets, observations. When he reaches the moment at 8:06, his pen pauses. He writes, 1 battleship destroyed by single bomb. Magazine detonation. Complete loss. He underlines it once. For years, Japanese naval doctrine has been built around the concept of the decisive fleet engagement. Battleships meeting battleships, trading salvos until one side breaks. Aircraft are important, yes, but still considered auxiliaries to the big guns. But what he saw at Pearl Harbor does not fit that model. One bomb, one aircraft, one moment, an entire capital ship erased. Later that day, as the carriers steam farther from Hawaii, Fuchida stands again on deck. The sky is clear, the ocean calm, as if nothing extraordinary has occurred. It is difficult to reconcile the serenity with the image burned into his memory, the towering fireball, the ship vanishing beneath it. He thinks of the men inside Arizona, sailors he will never meet. He imagines their morning routine interrupted not by gunfire, but by light so bright it blinds before it kills. There is no glory in that, no duel, no chance to fight back. That night, officers gather in the wardroom. Sake is poured. There are toasts to the Emperor, to the success of the mission. Laughter rises, brief, forced. Conversation turns technical, bomb performance, torpedo depth settings, lessons learned. Eventually, someone mentions Arizona again. That explosion, an officer says quietly. If our ships were at anchor like that. The sentence is left unfinished. Everyone understands the implication. Back at Pearl Harbor, salvage crews work through the night. Fires still burn on Arizona. The heat is so intense that metal glows faintly red in places. Divers cannot approach the forward wreckage. Bodies are recovered from the water and from other ships, but from Arizona, almost none. By morning, the harbor is a graveyard. Sunken hulls protrude from the water like broken teeth. Smoke lingers low, refusing to dissipate. American flags are raised where possible, some blackened, some torn. The wreck of Arizona is officially declared a total loss. President Franklin D. Roosevelt will soon call the attack a date which will live in infamy. Millions will hear the words. Fewer will truly grasp what it looked like to witness the moment that phrase was born. For Fuchida, that understanding is already complete. He has seen the future of war in a single explosion, and it unsettles him. Victory, he realizes, does not always look like triumph. Sometimes it looks like silence after a shockwave, smoke rising where certainty once stood. As the Japanese fleet disappears into the vastness of the Pacific, the image of USS Arizona burning at anchor follows him, an unspoken warning written in fire and steel. December 8, 1941. Pearl Harbor. Dawn. The fires aboard USS Arizona have finally begun to weaken, but the ship still breathes smoke. Thin gray plumes rise from twisted superstructure, drifting low across the harbor like a funeral veil. The smell burned oil, scorched metal, and death clings to everything. At first light, rescue boats edge closer to the wreck. Sailors stand at the rails, staring down into blackened holes where turrets once stood. The forward deck is unrecognizable, peeled back, collapsed inward, fused by heat. No one speaks loudly near the ship. Instinctively, they lower their voices, as if approaching a cemetery. Chief Machinist's mate Harold W. Wiley leans over the rail of a small launch and peers into the water. Beneath the surface, the outline of the hull is visible, dark and still. Oil continues to seep upward in slow, iridescent streaks. "They're still down there," someone murmurs. Everyone knows it. More than 1,100 sailors and Marines remain entombed inside the ship. Many were never identified. Entire divisions, fire controlmen, turret crews, mess attendants, cease to exist in a single instant. Their bodies lie where they fell, sealed behind warped bulkheads no cutting torch can safely penetrate. The Navy makes the decision quickly. Arizona will not be raised. Divers attempt limited entry into aft compartments, where damage is less severe. A handful of remains are recovered, personal effects brought up in canvas bags, dog tags fused together, watches stopped at 8, 6, rings warped by heat. Each item is catalogued, logged, handled with care. But forward of turret 3, no one goes. The magazines are flooded. The structure is unstable. Any attempt to cut deeper risks igniting unexploded powder or collapsing what remains. The ship is too dangerous. The dead will stay with her. On the shoreline, sailors who survive the blast return to the wreck whenever they can. Some stand silently. Others point, explaining to newcomers where their berthing compartments once were. A few whisper names. One sailor presses his hand against the warm steel of the hull, closes his eyes, and steps back. Above the harbor, American flags fly at half-staff. Thousands of miles away, Japanese newspapers will soon print triumphant headlines. Battleships destroyed. American power crippled. The photograph of the burning harbor becomes proof of victory. But in private correspondence, some Japanese officers express unease. Rear Admiral Takejiro Onishi, a strong advocate of naval aviation, reportedly remarks that Pearl Harbor proved beyond doubt what air power could do to battleships, even their own. The implication is clear. What happened to Arizona could happen to anyone. For the men who witnessed it firsthand, that knowledge cannot be unlearned. At Pearl Harbor, work continues around the clock. Ships like West Virginia and California will eventually be refloated and repaired. Dry docks, spared by chance and caution, will return vessels to service. The base itself will recover. Arizona will not. She remains where she sank, her deck just above the waterline, her hull forming a permanent silhouette against the harbor. Over time, she becomes more than a wreck. She becomes a symbol. Years later, a white memorial will be built spanning her hull. Visitors will look down into the water and see oil still rising, the tears of the Arizona, some call it. Few will fully comprehend that beneath their feet lie hundreds of men who never left their posts. For Mitsuo Fuchida, now far away and already moving toward the next phase of the war, the image remains vivid. He has seen ships sink before. He has watched men die. But he has never seen destruction so absolute, so final, delivered so quickly. One bomb. One battleship. One moment that ends an era. The war will rage for nearly 4 more years. Carriers will replace battleships as the arbiters of naval power. Cities will burn. Entire fleets will vanish beneath the sea. But on December 7, 1941, in the still waters of Pearl Harbor, the future announced itself in fire.